So, it's been a while since Marvel made a vampire movie, and technically they gave it to Sony. And we got Morbius. Let's do a movie review. Alright, guys. So, Morbius, the living vampire. My first introduction to this character was in the Spider-Man animated series, and there was apparently a very, very different take because they didn't want to show a vampire, gnashing on people's necks and sucking their blood. So instead, he had weird little succubal things that came out of his hands. So that's what I always expected any version of Morbius to have. No, this version of Morbius just flat out just bites into people and sucks at the blood. When he has to, apparently. Much like Blade. Which this movie has a whole lot of Blade references. Let's start somewhere in the middle. We have a Jared Leto and we have a Matt Smith. And together we have two vampires fighting each other. So even though this isn't a direct Marvel movie, we still have same versus same. Now, I guess Matt Smith's character is supposed to be somebody named Hunger, I suppose, from the comic books. I don't know. I've never seen said things. Gotta set my focus, or else the camera goes crazy. And a lot of people were giving this very negative reviews right out of the bat. And they said that Matt Smith was the best thing about this movie. And I would argue, no. I would say that Jared Leto was actually the better part of this movie. And that's just me. Now, I am a Matt Smith fan. But the problem is, Matt Smith is Matt Smith in everything he does, especially if he keeps his same haircut. The only time I've really seen Matt Smith play something different was in The Crown, where he's playing Prince? King? Whatever. A Duke? Duke of Windsor, I guess? And even then, he's still very much Matt Smith. I think that Jared Leto tends to take on his characters a little bit more, even though he basically looks like Rockstar Jesus and has for a little while with the long hair, the beard, and all that kind of stuff. But I think he really does sell the character. And a lot of people, I think, have been just shitting on it. I know a lot of people just don't like Jared Leto. I don't have a particular problem with him. And I think he's fine. I think he plays this character exceptionally well. Now, the only thing that I think is somewhat lacking is the foreign nature of Michael Morbius, because he's very much American in this, seemingly. Even though, like, right at the beginning, we're already in Greece, apparently, as a kid. And I say in the beginning because I'm not starting this movie at the very beginning where he's capturing the bats, which I still don't understand how the thing he set up was a trap. But, it is what it is. They introduce real quick, he has this disease, which apparently is a blood clotting disease, or like the blood thickens up, and they have to change it out at least 3 times a day. Basically they refer to it as an oil change. I think this is a fairly real disease. I feel like it's actually happened, or at least people can have disorders very similar to this. So, Morbius is a genius. Michael is a genius, and it's displayed very early on in the movie that because he knows how to fix a machine that has a blown fuse with a small piece of metal that is roughly the same size as said fuse, he's apparently a genius. Now, we already see that he's a genius because he's like playing chess and all this other kind of stuff like this. But to save his new friend, that I've already forgotten what he calls him, I'm going to be honest with you. I think it was also an M name. So this clinic is for kids of similar problems because apparently it kills everybody. So it's one of the few clinics on the world that can help with this. They can change out your blood and everything. So his new friend that has come in, who they clearly establish is very well off because they roll up in a Rolls to this clinic. We know nothing about Michael's parents. We know nothing about his family. We know nothing about his history other than the fact that he's a genius and all this, that, and the other. So he saves his friend. they become even closer. I say friend because he's a new replacement version, because everybody else either dies or moves on, I guess, but he stays the same. So he just keeps naming them the same name over and over, which has completely slipped my mind because I saw this movie 2 days ago. Normally I want to review a thing the day I watch it. I didn't have time. Apologies. So that builds up their relationship. He's got the money. He's got the brains. Together they try to survive. Up until adulthood. But the thing is, we skip over his in-between zones except for seeing that he gets a Nobel Prize for inventing synthetic blood, which is awesome. And then he apparently just says, nope, I don't want your stupid prize. I just want to try to solve my own deadly disease and keep other people from doing this. So he basically gives a big middle finger to them. And then he just keeps going on about his business. And then he goes on to start his own clinic, works with Horizon Labs. I don't know if that's his lab specifically, or it's just one he works at, like he's just employed by them. They allowed him to do his research that way, where he develops synthetic blood. And then, of course, he's captured all these bats, which is discovered by the other doctor that works with him, which is, of course, the only important female of the movie. Therefore, she must be the love interest. Bingo. And this all works out fine. She calls him on his shit. Here's the bats. And he's like, look, I'm trying to use their non-coagulant or the anticoagulant saliva of these bats to solve our genetic issues. So I'm trying to fuse the two genes together so that our blood is made with that particular protein that will keep us from coagulating in the same manner. And hopefully this will be great, but I can't do these things here because of laws. So if I'm in international waters, I can do this. Let me go borrow some money from my rich Matt Smith friend, who also has my disease. Therefore, he will support anything I do because he's my friend. And the only thing we really have in common at all is our disease. And that's it. So that's what happens. And then they go out on a big old boat in the middle of the ocean, set up this replica lab of what they're doing. They have some bat, they have some blood, they have genetic recombinators. I think that was from the Spider-Man the animated series. It was a genetic DNA recombinator, I think is what it was called. Great name, great name. So he does the thing. He makes the stuff and it goes, look, it worked in a rat. Therefore, I can put it in myself. Because this is human trials, and we need a human who has the disease, or else it's actually kind of pointless. So let's just make go the thing. I am injecting myself. Actually, he didn't inject himself. She injected him directly into his spine. Ooh. And you get to see how, like, really bony and everything is. I gotta wonder if Jared Leto, because he is a pretty beefy dude in general, if he slimmed down for that part, or if they used a body double, or if it was a totally CG body. The weird raised spine that they had on him clearly must have been either a makeup or a CG element. Either way. So they do the thing. He's got all these things on him. He's strapped in the chair in the locked room. And he's left there to change. And then, for whatever reason, one of the mercenaries that they've hired to protect the who knows? The guys who took their money to allow this illegal thing to happen decide to come down and see what's going on in the lab for some fucking reason. And when he does, he's like, I don't know what's going on. He kind of starts hitting on her. She says, fuck off, dude. Why are you even down here? You guys have no reason to come down here. Fuck off. And then Morbius disappears out of a chair. All the things go off. And you're like, what the hell? So, of course, dude with the gun goes in and says, hey, what the fuck's happening in here? And there's a Morbius on the ceiling. And now he's in full-on vampire mode for the first time ever. And basically, from here on out, it just becomes a balance of him figuring out his powers, not wanting to kill anybody, because obviously he's a kind-hearted person. He doesn't want to kill anybody. He drinks his own synthetic blood for as long as he can. He's doing all the scientific method, which I really appreciate about this movie. He goes through all the science of it. He realizes he's faster. He realizes he's coordinated. He's strong. He can walk for the first time in his life. And he checks his reflexes. He realizes he's got echolocation now. He realizes that he can time out exactly when he starts feeling different. So he goes basically to just completely normal when he ingests enough blood, to over time the thirst and the hunger starts taking over and he starts feeling bad and weird and transforming. So he's got his little Casio. It looks like a Casio digital watch that he's always setting the timer for, whenever he's like, okay, nope, it's time, drink some blood, move on. And while he has regular human blood on board, probably for testing purposes and probably just in case he needs a proper transfusion at some point, he tries to rely entirely on the synthetic blood. And it works for a long time until it basically doesn't, and that's the story of this movie. Now, the biggest problem inherent to this movie is it is ever so slightly boring. Now, a lot of people say it's very boring. I'm not going to say that. I actually did enjoy this movie overall. The only problem I had, and this is probably an issue with my theater, is that it's a very dark movie. A lot of it takes place at night or in dark places. Hello, Bat. He's literally Batman. He can actually communicate with the bats and control what they do, just like Batman would do in at least the first movie, where he had the bat call thing and he could summon bats. He does that several times in this movie. In fact, it is a final plot point, which, spoiler for a movie nobody seems to like anyways, there is a bat Kamehameha in this. I'm not joking. I was watching what he was doing. He does the thing like this, and then he literally does either a bat Hadouken or a bat Kamehameha. I think it was more of a bat Kamehameha to ultimately defeat his enemy. And of course, it comes down to the difference between you and I have the same exact powers. I've had it longer, therefore I know the ins and outs and some of the things that I can do that, you haven't had the experience with. So Morbius using what he's learned through his experiments on himself versus what Matt Smith's version does. I do like the fact that they transform differently. Like, their faces look very different. Like, Matt Smith actually looks more like a demon, and Morbius looks more like a proper bat, I think. Like, in the transformation is subtle sometimes. Like, every now and then it's his eyes change, or like he'll snarl and his teeth and everything change. What's interesting about it is it's almost magical, not physical, because the change can be instantaneous to the bat form. Like, his fingers get long, or fingernails get sharp, his fingers get longer, everything changes, his nose changes shape, his ears change shape, all of it goes in an instant, like that, and it just instantly changed. Unlike normal vampire transformations that we usually see in movies, where they're always a vampire mode, or they turn it on but it's a slower transformation, or it's just the teeth come down, something like that. They just look human at all times and they just have sharp teeth and suck blood. These guys are turning into bat creature people. I'm trying to avoid saying they turn into Batman. The fact that he never said, "I'm Batman," he dropped the "I'm Venom" line when somebody asked who he was. And by the way, this takes place in the Venomverse. They do reference the events in San Francisco, the crazy stuff that's happened out there. We do get Tyrese in this movie, and I don't give a fuck. Like, his character does nothing. He's not important, and his acting is just so... It doesn't even care. He's got, what's his name? He's a comedian. Al Madrigal. Al Madrigal is his sidekick, as it were. He's okay in this. He's trying. He's chewing the scenery a little bit, not like Matt Smith. Matt Smith is very much chewing the scenery and the people and everything. Including their doctor, who has been still... See what I just did there? If you catch what I just did there, put it in the comments. Apparently, their same doctor has been treating them their whole lives and hasn't aged at all. Now, this actor has been around forever. But the funny thing is, he seems older when they're younger. And when everyone is now older by 20 some odd years, everybody looks, or he looks the same, and they're just older kids, as it were. But The part where this movie sort of falls apart is just the simplicity of it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's not a bad movie by any means. Just, it's not top tier Marvel because it's not. It's Sony. This is a Sony movie that's happening in the verse that Sony has set up. And by the way, the Spider-Man reference that was in the teaser trailers initially, completely gone. That was just a filler thing on the wall. That wasn't even anything in real. Because I don't think Spider-Man technically exists in this universe. And it kind of becomes apparent with that at the end of this movie, where they shoehorned in a character that was in the current trailers. And we're going to go spoilers here again. Michael Keaton is in this movie, but literally only the last 2 minutes of the movie. In the post-credit scenes, both of them. Or the early credit and then a minute later credit. And he is the Vulture that we know. He gets pulled into that universe by the multiversal crack in the sky. And because he's someone who doesn't exist, who has suddenly appeared in jail, they let him out. And then, I guess, however much time has gone by, he recreates his Vulture persona with the technology of this world, even though there's no Tony Stark, there's no Chitauri, there's no nothing. But he somehow completely recreates his Vulture tech without even having an identity in this world in the first place. So they shoehorned that in, along with him meeting Morbius out in the middle of a desert. So that, I'm going to talk about this just for a second, because this is the negatives section here. That part made no sense to the rest of the movie, because the entire movie, Michael is fighting against the demon inside that wants to kill, that wants to drink human blood, that wants to do anything it can to be that. He's fighting against that. And then eventually he's literally fighting against that in Matt Smith's version, as Hunger. And in the end of this, they're trying to set up a new Sinister Six. He's like, look, man, we need to put together a team. Couldn't do it on my Earth, but I could do it here. I think I'm here because of Spider-Man. I have no idea. Whatever his voice technically is. And then Morbius sort of goes along with it, wanting to be a villain. Even though he spends this entire movie trying to be a good guy who's got a demon inside. And it makes no sense. That makes no sense. He's an anti-hero at best. But through this movie, he's trying to save his own ass because he doesn't know that his best friend has betrayed him and taken the other serum, made himself into a demon-y creature. And then at the very end, because he keeps killing off all the people who matter to him so that it's the age-old story, the obsessive best friend who, once they turn super evil, can't let go of the person they want to be with. And it turns into, I'm going to kill everyone important to you so that you'll only be with me. And since they're the only two in the world, it just makes it out to be that way. So he kills the doctor and he kills the girlfriend. Or at least leaves her for dead because he wants to... This is the Blade problem. So, if you guys recall, all the way back in Blade 1, and then I think again in Blade 2, and then I think again in Blade... Either way, they keep repeating the same thing. A vampire who refuses to drink from humans is forced to drink from humans before the final battle. So, he leaves her for dead on a rooftop, and they're always going between the red and the blue, because real blood versus synthetic blood, red and the blue. So he leaves her on a rooftop in a light panel floor that is one side red, one side blue. She's laying right in the middle, because symbology. So she said, make it worth something, or make it count, because she knows she's dying. So she's like, basically, drink me to go kick his ass. Same thing. Basically happened in Blade 1. And something similar in this movie happens. Thinks a character's dead after being fed on by a vampire. And then that character comes back. So he has to feed on her, but I think at some point after he bites her, I think his own blood falls into her mouth. I missed that part. Once again, screen not being, I guess old school projectors are not as good as newer ones. So what should look like proper black looks grayish, so everything looks a little weird. The contrast isn't very high. The darkness settings isn't. The brightness setting is on a wonkiness. So at the if you can blink and miss the fact where she resurrects, because it's right at the end. So all of their fight happens in an underground sewer tunnel, and he does the Bat Kamehameha, and then the cops are all showing up, and the FBI are all showing up because they all still think he's the murderer, even though now they know there's someone else. And then he uses the bats to escape. Like, he literally can fly with the bats. Also, he can fly in this movie, and I know, and in the cartoon he could fly. I assume in the comics he could fly, but it's never once explained within this movie, and I think it's because he discusses the fact that vampire bats weigh virtually nothing and can fly super fast, change direction super fast. So I think something about when he's in vampire form makes him super light and has something to do with his sonic abilities. Speaking of Sonic, that review's coming too. When he's using his echolocation and stuff, the world turns into this weird particle, watercolory look thing. Like, there's no real reason for that other than just looking pretty. But when he flies, the first time he figures it out, he's flying in front of an oncoming subway car. And it's almost like the sound of that thing is propelling him forward, is really what it seems like. I don't know if that's really what's happening. He literally does not discuss this, and I'm actually okay with that. Some movies do over-explain stuff, and I'm somebody who does want to know the ins and outs of how stuff works, if possible. So, this gets no explanation. And it doesn't seem like Matt Smith's character can do the same. We know they're both super fast, we know they're both super strong. And every now and then, their speed looks like, at least from their own perception, looks like Nightcrawler's teleportation ability. Because it goes like, poof, they disappear here, there's a streak of fluffy particles, and then they're over there. Morbius does this, and then Hunger does this. It looks like they're teleporting, but really they're just going super fast. When they're fighting each other, everything goes into slow-mo, and they do that whole where we're moving around super fast thing, and then kind of thing. And every now and then the CG is very wonky in those fights. The rest of the time, the CG, from my opinion, is actually very good, especially the transformation of the faces, because sometimes it's happening mid-conversation, sometimes it's just subtle, sometimes it's a full transformation and then right back. That's not easy to pull off. Doing full-on face replacement with movement, with talking, with full tracking, it's not an easy thing to necessarily pull off. Mind you, this is Sony still. But, like, Matt Smith's looks so inhuman in a way that, like, he looks very strange, especially at a distance. At a distance, he looks more fake than Morbius does. And it's because his eyes get more sunken in and stuff like that, where Morbius's nose gets sunk in and his eyes, either way. And it's not consistent either with how far they transform either direction, because sometimes when Morbius lets go completely, he goes completely like crazy bat looking face, upturned nose, all the wrinkles, the giant teeth, all that. You see that in the trailer. But most of the time it's very subtle. It's like his skin is still kind of smooth, his eyes are red and put out, his nose kind of disappears into his lip, very Voldemort-y. And it looks fine. It looks good. Oh, one thing that's really neat about this, as his powers evolve, because Morbius, I think, always had like a purple color scheme going on, like with his costumes. When he's flying at the end, he has a purple, black and purple trail. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty neat thing, I thought. So, what I was trying to say before about the blink and you miss it thing at the end, when they're flying away in the bats, I don't think he notices that she transforms. Also, he can hear across the whole damn city, and he can do, like... I think it's implying that he actually probably would have better hearing than Daredevil. Because not only can he search for anything, you know, he's just putting out his ping, whatever, and then everything turns to watercolors. It never shows how he pinpoints anything, other than he can hear it and then he can focus on it. Kind of like Superman would do. But, like, it would be cool if he did that, and then like the watercolors started rippling out from the thing that he's locking onto. You know, like he found something and now he can focus entirely on it, and then we see some type of focusing ability. That's never been a thing in this movie. Ultimately, bad guy versus good guy. Good guy wins, of course. important message. I'm not going to tell you what he does to end him. It also is very similar to original Blade, in a way. Very much in a way. Actually, I think even from Blade 2. But it wasn't a terrible movie. I would watch this movie again. That's my yardstick right now. The bare minimum crappy level movie that I would bother with is Eternals. That's the bottom of tolerable. And I don't like Eternals. That was a bad movie. Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, down here. That's below that. That is some really garbage level stuff there. Even like the original Daredevil movie is above Eternals. Original Ghost Rider is above Eternals. Blade Trinity is above Eternals. Not by a lot, but it is. There's a few bad Marvel movies barely below Eternals. And I'm talking about just in the Marvel everything, not just Marvel Studios. This is above Eternals by a good amount. I thought it was a decent movie. Editing was a little weird. Sometimes it's just a little strange. They went from their temporary lab back to their main lab without any explanation. So because the FBI is onto him, he has to abandon his main lab that he's had forever and set up a new lab, which is a cool wrinkle in the story. I like how they have to make him evolve and have to change and adapt to things. And I really do like the way they work that and how he is clever enough to go, okay, I need to do this, I need to do this, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to focus on this. So he puts together very quickly in one scene that because something this person is trying to give another person, he realizes by her reaction what's going on, realizes who and what this guy is and what he's doing, and then instantly determines I can go to there to do what I need to do. And we see his mechanical aptitude come into place. We see his biology aptitude, bioscience, whatever you want to call it. Because he basically have to rebuild his lab from scratch using stuff that's there. And he does it, and it's pretty cool. You know, except for the fact that in the next scene, after being forced to do that, they're suddenly back in the main lab doing things, which I guess would be convenient at that particular point, but you know, it is what it is. So the movie does move a little fast sometimes, like the pacing. I don't think it ever slows down too much. I think it goes too quickly sometimes. Like we're just being forced from one spot to the next without a breather in some cases. And I could see why some people would find it boring. I do. I mean, like, I don't think it was that boring because I was engaged. Like, I also went to the very first showing of the day, so I was a little sleepy. It's like, not gonna lie, I was a little sleepy early on. Once I got some caffeine going in me, I was in it. And like only a couple times I got distracted by a text message or something like that. There were 3 people in my theater. Me and 2 people in a row in front of me. So, yeah. I actually like this movie. I'd watch it again. If I'm gonna give it a letter grade, I would give it maybe a C-. On a good day, maybe just a C. Like, not quite a plus. You know, I'm not going to give it a B. No, because there's, like, certain things like Thor the Dark World are going to be in a B level. Maybe even a B+. You know, Iron Man 3 is a definite B+. People hate Iron Man 3 for some reason, but it's really good. I mean, Age of Ultron, that's even way above that area. So I think a solid C for this is a good way to go for it. Let me know if you saw it. Let me know what you think down in the comments section. And of course, if you caught the thing that I incidentally joked and referenced about, an accidental pun, as it were, leave that down below. So, if you want to check out any of my other movie reviews, they're here somewhere. Probably in a playlist. I do those things. I do have new merch available for different things in the link down below to my Teespring store. I do have stuff for my current charity contest that's going on. I also have merch for the podcast that I have with a couple friends called Now You Made It Awkward Podcast. And I will be discussing today, here in less than an hour, be talking about Morbius and Sonic 2 as well. So if you see these reviews, know that we're also discussing the same thing along with the Moon Knight series and the Halo series over there on that, along with doing different types of other pop culture and or regular culture issues, along with just nerdy life discussions. If you're interested in that, please come subscribe. The channel needs help, it's a brand new channel. We also have it just for audio only on Podbean and other things like that. If you're remotely interested, please come subscribe. I usually share the links in the community tab. So, I'll see you guys next time. And, well, keep on batting. Yeah. No, don't do that. That's just bad. I will say The Batman was a better Batman movie than Morbius. But Morbius was technically a better Batman.